Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to That Triathlon Show, the podcast presented by scientifictriathlon.com. I'm your host, Michael, and this episode is Beginner Tip 14, where I'll talk about 9 ways to find motivation to train. This can be a struggle, I am very well aware of that. None of the tips I'll give are any sort of silver bullets that will magically solve the problem for you. But when you have all of these in your arsenal, it should be easier to get at least 95% of your training done, which is what you definitely want to strive for. And I want to get this done in 15 minutes or less as usual, so I'd better get going with tip number 1, which is see triathlon as a lifestyle. It shouldn't be a chore. It is a gift to be able to do what we're doing, to be able to swim, bike and run. And not all of us are. I'm at the moment not biking very much, not running at all. And I really suffer from it. I really miss it. So think about it every day as something that you get to do, something that you're lucky to do, and something that is part of your lifestyle and part of who you are. And that will make it so much easier. If you start seeing it as a chore, that's when you start to have problem motivating yourself. Tip number 2, set appropriately challenging goals and write them down. And I can't emphasize that writing it down part enough. For example, you can sign up for a race and set a goal to whether it is to just complete it, or it can be to set a time goal to beat your previous time, for example, or any specific time. But have that goal and write it down and keep it front and center. Don't write it down and leave it in a drawer that you never look at. I usually like to put notes on the fridge with my goals, or I have it in my Evernote and those sorts of things. So have it so that you can see it, review it daily. That is definitely something that I would recommend. Tip number 3 is to have a training plan and log your training to hold you accountable to that training plan. Whether you create the plan yourself, you should not fly by the seat of your pants, or if you have a paid training plan or something that you found for free, anything goes, but you need to have a way to log that training and make it very tangible when you do not perform a workout that is in your training plan. So I would print out the training plan that you have, or maybe if you use something like Training Peaks, that's fine too. But if you print out a paper, an A3 or A4 paper with your plan, and you can just check off all the workouts that you do, and then when you don't do them, it will be very visible to you. And keep that on the fridge along with your goals or wherever you have it, but very visible, again, very front and center. Tip number 4 is to train with others. This can make it a whole lot more fun and enjoyable and motivating. You can push each other, motivate each other. Maybe you even train for the same race and have similar kinds of goals. That would be the ideal situation to really get the most out of it. But whatever you may do, whether it's turning up once a week to a master swim class or having a triathlon buddy that you train with all the time, all of your workouts are with that friend. And anything goes. The more the better. Not necessarily, actually. I take that back, because it's useful to train to your own abilities. So if you train together, you should have similar abilities. But train together with others to the extent that you need it to keep yourself motivated and to keep enjoying the sport. That's I liked that rephrasing much better than the more the better. But that's something that's super useful. I know that, for example, for myself, since moving to Portugal, having others to train with constantly, that has definitely helped a lot with my motivation. Tip number 5 is to mix things up with different and fun training days and even training periods, maybe after your last triathlon race of the season. So an example of just mixing things up with just a workout could be to not having any sort of structured workout on a Sunday. You decide that instead you just want to go on a long ride with your friends, where you visit as many coffee shops around in the area as you can and sit down and have fun, and you still go out riding, but it's very different from a normal structured 2-hour, 1 hour and a half long ride, whatever you tend to do on those Sundays. So something different, simply. And it can be training for a different event outside of your triathlon season. So maybe try a winter triathlon if you live in that sort of climate where you do cross-country skiing. Or try a swim run. This is something that I've used definitely both for mixing things up in training and in terms of training for a specific race. I've found that swim runs at the end of the season, that has been a really fun way to stay motivated to training, but not have as much structure and need to hit specific target times and all that as I have in my triathlon training. Tip number 6 is to give yourself rewards when you achieve milestones, and you can set these yourself. For example, let's say that you plan to train 5 times per week this entire month. Then tell yourself that if you miss at most 3 workouts, you'll buy yourself something for your triathlon, or outside of triathlon even, that you want and maybe you need, but at least something that you want, something that you'll enjoy. So maybe that's a pair of nice compression socks that you think would look nice on you, or something like that. Whatever it is, make some sort of milestone that will keep you motivated to do your training and have a reward at the end of that. And that is also something that I would write down and keep front and center on that same fridge or that board in your working room or whatever it is. One way to do this is you can do either rewards or anti-rewards, where you actually have to pay if you don't achieve a goal. So a great website for this is stick.com, and that's spelled STICKK, so 2Ks.com. And there you can actually put in your credit card details and put a number, like how much do you pledge to give to either a charity or an anti-charity. For example, I've used this in the past where I decided that my anti-charity would be the Manchester United fan club, because I am an Arsenal supporter and do not want the Manchester United fan club to get my money. But I failed a couple of weeks to meet my goals, whatever it was. I can't even remember. I don't think it was triathlon related. But then I could inevitably see that the money was withdrawn from my bank account and it went to that Manchester United fan club. So that definitely then kept me motivated to not fail again to achieve whatever the structure, the goals that I had set for myself were. So stick.com. Tip number 7 is to determine the feeling that you want to have in your workout. You can determine beforehand, and this is a tip that I need to give credit where credit's due. It's to Brendon Burchard, who is the author of High Performance Habits, a great book. It's based on the largest scientific study on high performance habits that's ever been done. And determine the feeling that you want to carry into and carry within and carry out of a workout. So I apply this to workouts here. That's not necessarily what the book is about. But for example, when I go to a swim session in the morning, I decide that I want to be focused, I want to be present, and I want to work really hard. And I know it will feel tough in the session, but I know that I will enjoy it and I will be really happy with what I've accomplished after the session. So I determine beforehand, think through those feelings that I will have going into the session, within the session, and after the session. And especially that after the session, when you're really happy and feel accomplished, that's something that you can use to stay motivated. And you do that, determine the feeling, you do it before your workout. Tip number 8 is to create triggers. And this is from another book on habits. It's a very, very popular one, Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit. He has this thing called a habit loop, which starts with a trigger and then goes into routine and then ends with a reward. So you can combine this with the reward tip that I already talked about. But a trigger can be something as simple as putting out your shoes right next to your bed before you go to sleep. And that will then, when you wake up and you see the shoes, that will be the trigger for you to put on your running clothes and go out for a run. Or something like having your swim bag packed and ready in the driver's seat in your car. Then you actually physically need to move the swim bag before you get in your car in the morning. And that, I think, will motivate you to go to your swimming session. Because if you actually move your swim bag, you can't just ignore it and pretend that it's not there. It's not possible to do that. So that sort of trigger, I think, can be really powerful. It can even be to just commit to always get dressed for the workout, but you don't commit to actually doing the workout. So you say, fine, I have a run workout today. I'll just put on my running clothes and then I'll put my normal clothes back on. But chances are actually that once you are dressed, you will do the run anyway. So So the way that this works is that these triggers will make it easier for you to get through and do the routine, which in this case is the workout. And you can, as I said, combine this with a reward. You can even have, on a micro level, small rewards after your workout. So that could be something as simple as you need your post-workout nutrition anyway, right? So a healthy, nice, tasty smoothie after your workout. That can be your reward. So that then you combine the trigger, the workout, and the reward, and that will eventually make the motivation to become intrinsic rather than extrinsic based on those triggers and rewards. Tip number 9, finally, is to get a coach or get a personal training plan that will hold you accountable to the coach who has put in the time to coach you and create your training plan for you, whether it's through ongoing individual coaching or through a one-off training plan. You will also have the commitment because you've invested quite a significant amount of money in that. So that will be a commitment to that investment, to not let it go to waste. So that is also a very, very powerful way that you can get more motivation. I hope that you enjoyed this beginner tip. As usual, you can contact me and send me questions on michael@scientifictriathlon.com, and that's Michael with a K, or you can tweet me on Twitter where my handle is @SciTriat. Just briefly, one more thing about that coaching or customized plan. That's something that I do offer. So email me if you want to learn more, or visit scientifictriathlon.com/coaching to learn all about it. And it definitely is one of the most powerful tips to stay motivated. I haven't struggled with motivation at all since I've had coaches in my triathlon, and that's not something that I see in any of the athletes that I coach either. They all have very good motivation, and that's not because anybody of us, I'm not and they're not, intrinsically more motivated necessarily than others, but we just have put ourselves in environments, in this case by being coached, to make that motivation shine through, so to say. In the next beginner tip, next Friday, I'll talk about the best investments that beginner triathletes can make. You remember that last week's episode was about the worst investments, so do go and have a listen to that if you haven't already. And next week, we'll cover the best investments, so that's also something that will be useful, I hope. Thank you, as always, for listening. Keep training smart and keep loving triathlon.